pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're seeking a motion to approve the minutes of the Committee of the Whole workshop held on February 22nd.
By motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Presidential comments?
Just real quick, the St. Patty's Day parade was yesterday, and it went quite well considering the weather. Quite a turnout, so real pleased with that. Also, St. Baldrick's at the Gym Quest and at Nevin's Brewery went quite well too. As you will observe, one participant here from the front table. It was. I had to take a break halfway through cutting his hair because there was so much. So, but we managed to get it all. So, but that's all I have.
Trustees' comments?
I had a couple of them. I'd like to reiterate my support for the checks being posted online, as well as maybe some of the contracts, and the packets for the meetings. Also, I saw something that some of the neighboring communities are doing, and I mentioned this to the chief beforehand. He said he was looking into it already. It's an internet purchase exchange location. Essentially what it is, for those who do business off of Craigslist, it gives them a semi-safe location, the police department parking lot generally, that they put up a sign and it's under surveillance that they can exchange their purchases rather than doing it in the Meyer parking lot or wherever in a private parking lot. It's just something to look into. I mean, I think it'd be nice, and I would like to remind everybody to vote tomorrow. Everybody's vote counts.
Are there any other trustee comments?
I have a couple. I agree with Trustee Wojciechowski's comments. All of them. I did actually brainstorm, possibly bringing up what he had just brought up about the safe spot for Craigslist exchanges. I don't know what different riders we would have to have on our insurance or check with them, but I'd like to maybe have us move forward and see what we can do to maybe provide that for the public and provide a safe place. I think it would just detour a lot of, not a lot, but some bad situations, but not necessarily guarantee safety, but provide a safer, not safe place to perform those exchanges. Secondly, just something in general, as the weather's warming up, people are riding motorcycles, so please be mindful of that when you're out driving. Thank you. Have a good day.
Are there any other trustee comments? If not, this would be the time for public comments. We'll proceed with the workshop meeting. First item on the agenda is Lower DuPage River Watershed Coalition.
Good evening. I'm going to kick off the first meeting of two regarding the DuPage River. So tonight we're going to be talking about water quantity in the latter part of the meeting here, and in the first part we're going to talk a little bit about water quality, or the Lower DuPage Coalition's role in assuring the quality of the river and trying to implement plans that would improve the quality of the river. So I want to thank the board for their past support of the coalition, and I want to give I'm actually going to have Jennifer Hammer come up from the Conservation Foundation, who's our watershed coordinator, and give you a rundown of the things that have been occurring at our meetings and what we think are going to be coming up in the near future. As near as this Thursday, so before I get out of here and I forget to plug that, Thursday morning, 10 o'clock at Plainfield Public Works, there will be a Lower DuPage River Watershed Coalition meeting, and all are invited to attend. It's in the lunchroom, but we'll figure that out. We have signs up as people approach the building, and we will get you in there. But there will be a lot of discussion there pursuant to some of the things that Jennifer will touch on here today. And I will highlight those certainly Thursday and perhaps a little bit more tonight. But I don't want to steal her thunder, so I'll invite Jennifer Hammer from the Conservation Foundation up to present.
Thank you, Doug. And I'd definitely like to thank the Village of Plainfield for their continued support, not only participating in the coalition, but providing meeting space. Nancy on Doug's staff there has been great, making sure that the meeting space is always set up for us. So I've been in front of you over the last couple of years, so I'm going to pass over some of this stuff. The Lower DuPage River watershed, we have parts of 9 communities, as you see listed here. Out of those 9 communities, we have 6 communities that have wastewater treatment plants that discharge to the DuPage River. 2015 was a pretty busy year for us. We did receive financial support from all of the agency members, so all the municipalities within the watershed. We completed our second round of biological sampling, habitat chemistry assessment at 41 sites across the watershed. We're doing this assessment every 3 years, building a baseline and then looking at trends over time. We held our second river sampling day in July. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute. We maintain a dissolved oxygen monitoring program at 8 different points throughout the watershed. 2 of those are in Plainfield. The folks at the staff there at the treatment plant maintain. And another thank you to Doug's staff, to Mark in particular, for helping with calibration of the probes that we use for that. I come in 1 month each during the summer, or once a month during the summer, to help out with calibration there. And then we also held a winter de-icing workshop in October, focusing on public roads. We held that in Romeoville, and we had over 70 participants, which was a really great turnout for our 3rd year that we've been doing that. So one of the things that we were pretty excited about doing was this river sampling day. So when we do the sampling out there, we have a crew from Ohio that we bring in that does the biological sampling, sample for fish and macroinvertebrates, the bugs that live in the river. And it's kind of a cool thing to watch. They have a boat on the big station, on the mainstream stations, where they electrofish. So they use an electric current, and the fish pop up and they catch them. And we set up kind of a display area along the river in Shorewood, just downstream of Route 52. And we're able to, we put water in some fish tanks, and we're able to bring some fish up from the river for people to see. We had about 30 participants, and we had some really good coverage in the local newspaper. And actually the Herald News, I left a link down there on the bottom, but they actually did a really nice video clip from the day showing some of the sampling going on. And so we'll definitely continue to do this as a way for people to kind of get down to the river and see what's living in there. So 2016, we'll be completing our bioassessment report probably by about mid-year. We started some in-stream winter chloride sampling this year. Winter chlorides are really kind of the next sort of hot topic coming up, both with Illinois EPA and with US EPA. So pretty much most of the treatment plants are now being required to sample for chlorides in their outfalls. There's a lot more interest in what chloride levels look like in the river. So we started collecting some in-stream data this year, and that'll be something that we'll continue to do in future winters. At our meeting on Thursday, one of the topics will be our education and outreach campaign. We're looking to work maybe with Blue Stem Communications on developing an outreach campaign. One of the topic areas being on winter chlorides. I think one of the biggest shifts that we need to make is just really what realistic expectations are during a snowstorm. Obviously we want to get roads clear. We want to keep roads safe for the public. That's #1 priority. but you know, you can't expect to be driving 70 miles an hour during a snowstorm, and it's going to take you a little bit more time during those snowstorms. And then you know, what's that trade-off with the amount of, not only the amount of salt that's being put down, the cost associated with that, the overtime associated with that, and you know, what that's taking away from in a budget, because it's very costly, and as well as what the impacts are on the river. And it's kind of chlorides are an interesting pollutant in that there are a lot of things that you can do to reduce that pollutant that actually saves the community money while maintaining that level of safety. Again, we'll continue our dissolved monitoring program. It'll run from June through October at 8 sites again this year on the river. Membership dues invoices will be sent out in April. We've expanded our winter de-icing workshops this year. We actually have it's a workshop and certification program. We have a group coming down from Minnesota that has come down and done workshops in DuPage County, Lake County, and McHenry County over the last probably 7 years. And so this year we're going to bring them down to Will County. And it's all focused on parking lots and sidewalks, so not only for public agencies, but really has a big focus for those private de-icers, which is an audience that we really want to get to. Okay. So something kind of not new, but expanding. There's another organization called the DuPage River Salt Creek Work Group. They've been around since 2006 in the DuPage River, east and west branches of DuPage River, so mostly in DuPage County, as well as Salt Creek, and basically doing the same type of work that we're doing in the coalition. We've actually modeled the way that we're organized and the way that we do our monitoring based on how the work group functions. And we're all part of the same watershed. And so this year we're going to be pooling all of our data together and working on a tool. It's called the Identification and Prioritization Tool. So looking at the data segment by segment on the river and being able to identify kind of where the biggest bang for the buck is for doing improvements. And if you were going to do a restoration project within a particular segment, what would be the goals for that segment to increase biological conditions? The work group has developed this tool a couple of years ago, and now with new data that they have and with our data from the lower DuPage, we're going to be kind of re-going through all the statistics on that. So we're going to be splitting the cost with DRSCW on that in a 50-50 split between the work group and the coalition. And another thing that they have been really focused on and very successful with, really the first permits in the nation to look at just a different way of doing business. So one of the hot topics has been nutrients and removing nutrients, and so the plant here in Plainfield actually has a phosphorus limit and removes phosphorus from the river. And that's something that a lot of other communities are looking at coming into their permits. And one of the things with all the data that the work group has been collecting over the last 10 years, they've kind of identified that phosphorus is probably not their number one concern from a water quality aspect. That there's a bunch of other things, particularly habitat related, that are more important than removing phosphorus and more cost effective. Like we know we're going to get a better return on the dollar for those investments. And so working with Illinois EPA and US EPA, they've been able to essentially just put off implementing that phosphorus removal in those plants for 2 permit cycles, so for about 10 years. And during that time, they're putting funds into restoration projects and some additional studies and looking at the potential for trading between treatment plants on how they do their phosphorus removal when they get to that point. And in that work group area in the DuPage County area, they're pooling together about $15 million to do restoration projects. And so, we're talking some real money. It's all local dollars, and they're matching that against some other funds to really get some major restoration projects done that we think are going to have some really good returns as far as increasing the biological life in the river. And so we're starting some of those discussions with some of the other treatment plants in the lower DuPage and the potential of pulling in funds. We have fewer treatment plants, so it's definitely going to be smaller dollars, but some dollars that we don't have otherwise to do some restoration within the DuPage River. And in cases like here in Plainfield, where phosphorus removal is already being done, and a number of other communities in the lower DuPage that are already doing phosphorus removal, it would be participation at a much lower funding level, but that then would essentially push out any tighter restrictions on that wastewater treatment plant permit out for that 10-year period, which, and for many of the communities, it's a real benefit from a dollar perspective. It's, as you know, quite expensive to maintain the work that they do at the treatment plant removing phosphorus, and so in order not to have to bring it down to an even lower limit, there's definitely a lot of cost savings in there. So we're in some real early discussions on that right now, but that's, like I said, really on the kind of cutting edge. This is the first permits in the nation to do something like this up in the upper part of the watershed. We've showed this similar chart in the past. You know, your participation is leveraged against all the other dollars coming in from the other communities in the watershed, as well as Will County Stormwater Committee. So, you know, our total annual budget's almost $144,000, and so Plainfield's portion of that is about 15%. So your dollars are being leveraged against the remaining communities there. We do have a website that we continue to add more information to, and information about our meetings. Again, like Doug said, we have our next meeting on Thursday, and we hold those every other month, the third Thursday of the month, and Doug and his staff have been gracious enough to host us over the last couple of years, and we really appreciate that. So from our last sampling there's some really nice fish in the DuPage River, and you know, a lot of things worth protecting out there. So again, appreciate your support.
So as you can see, there's a lot of things going on with the river, and some of them bear emphasizing, and that is basically that while Plainfield is out in the front on phosphorus removal, we currently have a limit set by the US EPA and administered by the Illinois EPA of a part 1 per million phosphorus limit. That number is something that is contentious throughout the state, and we have been trying to make the case scientifically. So a lot of what Jennifer was just hitting upon between the bioassessment and the in-river sampling, these are the things that we're trying to compile scientifically to make our case that maybe just targeting a number isn't really what's going to improve the health of the river. So with that information and with the regional approach, with all the communities getting together and finding good projects that are actually going to improve the health of the river, we think that that's the most sensible way to go about it, and it seems to be bearing fruit for the group to the north of us that was being referenced, and we hope to continue that down here. So I don't know if there's any additional questions surrounding the lower DuPage.
Couple if you. Jennifer mentioned chlorides. Obviously, some of it comes from salt in the roads. She kind of alluded to the fact some of it's come out of our waste treatment plant. What's the ratio between the two?
Well, we are seeing approximately 100 parts per million coming through the sewer plant on chlorides. The river is about 150 on a non-snow event day. We will see those numbers change both at the sewer plant and in the river. We'll see the sewer plant jump up to that 150 range. The river has varied widely. It will double, triple that number from.
In the upper parts of the watershed where they've been doing some of the long-term monitoring, numbers in the river get up over 1,500 milligrams per liter, and the state water quality standard is 500 milligrams per liter. So there's a lot of, you see these big spikes after snowstorms, as you would expect in the winter months.
Second question has to do with the dissolved oxygen. How do we have a serious problem with dissolved oxygen? I notice you're monitoring it, but are we concerned about fish kills, or what's the issue around dissolved oxygen?
So like people, fish need oxygen to live, and there's competing factors in the water that use up oxygen. So the amount of sediment that's in the river that has oxygen demand, some of the large beds of macrophytes, the rooted plants in the river, going to compete with that algae. And so some of the issues probably most related to dissolved oxygen is the geometry of the river. In many sections, for long stretches, it's very flat, it's very shallow, no diversity of flow, and we have a lot of these rooted macrophytes, and that definitely reduces the oxygen. We have not seen it to a point where we're seeing fish kills in the river, but there are times that it goes below the state standards. And so actually that's some of the, if we're able to move forward with some of the projects being funded through some of the special conditions, that would be really the focus of some of those projects, would be to look at how do we increase diversity of flow and habitat in the river to help improve those dissolved oxygen numbers.
And the last question has, did you perceive an improvement in the quality in the last, 3 or 4 years you've been working on this?
I haven't gotten all of our data back yet from this last assessment, so I can't answer that yet.
I need a subjective opinion. You think it's improving now, or we have a lot more work to do?
There's things that we definitely have a lot of work to do on the habitat end of things. Chlorides are, a continuing issue and something that's going to be long term, because that it sticks around for a while. But there's definitely some of the data that's going to come back that'll be interesting. We collected a lot more data on some of the smaller streams, and so we found more species of fish that haven't been identified in the DuPage River watershed. Actually, I think we got 2 new species that even the DNR hadn't found in the watershed yet. So there are some high points in the data.
Thank you.
Objectively, I would say less algae out there. We're seeing improvements on the river. Touching on the dissolved oxygen point, the wastewater treatment plant has an obligation to meet 6 parts per million going out of the sewer plant. So when it hits the river from us, it's at a 6. The river, they'd like to see a 4. They have seen they've seen that change due to the algae blooms, and that's one of the things that we're trying to address.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is DuPage River Study.
Good evening. Tonight we're having a presentation on the DuPage River Flood Risk Management Feasibility Study. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers sent out 2 representatives, Mr. Ahmad Samara and Sue Davis, to discuss the project. If you recall, late last year, the federal government approached Bill County and DuPage County concerning a comprehensive study of the DuPage River. And it's the first time that this river's been looked at in over 30 years. And I'm not going to steal much of their thunder, but it's kind of exciting for this project to be undertaken. There's been a lot of development and changes over the last 30 years, so they'll be going through explaining where the project is to date, the next steps in the project, and we will be here to answer any questions for this piece.
Yes, good evening. Like Randy mentioned, my name is Ahmad Samara. I am with the U.S. Army Corps, and Sue Davis is Chief of Planning. Since we are doing a feasibility report, that is a planning document. So first I want to thank you for asking us to come here. I mean, we always like to come and tell our story, and we would be happy to come back for any other, future dates. Just let us know, and we'll make ourselves available. So, the presentation. Oh, okay. I am just don't have to do anything. That's what I'm.
It's on our monitors up front here. We're waiting for it to cycle up onto the.
Oh, I see.
There we are.
Okay. I guess I would let you know the next slide. Okay, that's fine. This is a. We are here for the DuPage River. Basically, it's a flood risk management feasibility study. That's the U.S. Army Corps was actually authorized to actually go into that endeavor. And for us, the Corps, to start any study, we would have partners. So we were lucky enough to find partners for this study. So I'm just gonna go ahead and next slide. It's the DuPage River and its major tributary. Basically, the purpose of the study is a flood risk management, which is basically to make sure that to find the flooded areas and to reduce the risk of flooding in those areas. The scope of the work is basically it's anything that comes from the river, like an overbank and backwater flooding. Next. As you can see, it's the entire watershed of the DuPage River, which goes through Will County and DuPage County, and it's about 353 square miles, and about 154 of that is in Will County. It will touch about 29 municipalities, and about 12 of them in Will County, which is one of them is Plainfield. And it will actually impact about 900, and about 350 is in Will County. So the population is at risk is about 373,000. As I said, for us, the Corps, to actually go through a study like with this magnitude, we need partners, and we need partners to share the cost of the study. So we, the Corps, would pay 50%, and the partners would pay the other 50%. At this point, it's DuPage County Stormwater Management Planning Committee and Will County Executive Office. Those are the two that signed the agreement with us to move ahead with. Also, Illinois Department of Natural Resources is participating with us and come to our meetings, but they are not, at this point, they are not funding, they're not funding partners. Next. So the study objectives is, as I said, it's reduce risk of flood damages for structures and any infrastructures. Also, minimize flood impacts to critical facilities, and maximum use of natural bases. So basically, we would have some features part of the study to see if we could enhance the nature and benefit floodplain value. So next. So that basically the scope of the study would basically starts, as I said, it's the overbank. That's what we would look at for the river actually cause of the flooding. Elevated groundwater, if by blocking the river you're raising the groundwater, then that's something that we would look into, and we will actually be part of our study. The only thing that we will not study is a sewer backup. I mean, we believe that's a local entity's responsibility. So mainly things that the river is causing. That's the focus of the study. The measures for actually reducing flood that we would be looking, there would be structural, like levees, flood walls, reservoirs, diversions of the channel. Non-structural measures that we'd also look at as raising structures to kind of make sure that they're out of the flooded area. Buyouts also is included. Looking at buyouts and trying to help with buyouts, that's something that is part of this study. And what we also do is make sure that there is a comprehensive flood warning plan that is included part of the study. So the study steps, basically what we've been doing since we signed the agreement with Will County and DuPage County last July is going through our scoping, finding data that is existing, just gathering as much information as we can, meeting with the municipalities like Public Works and engineers to really hear from them where is the areas, where are some of the problems that we are. So we're gathering all that information. That's where we're at now. Now we're going, the next step is for us to take all that information and see what we're lacking and go out and getting additional information, like for instance, the hydraulic and hydrology modeling to update all those models and make sure that we have the up-to-date, because also look at the structural inventory, that all the buildings and things like that. So that's where now we are. The next step is to really finding more refined, more detailed information. The third step is to draft a report, and that's basically by January 2017, we should have somewhat of a draft report that tells us at least where we want to go from that point on, what some of the things that we may be able to implement, able to pursue further work with. And the next two steps is just our process for the Corps to get approval for us to move ahead, and then get Washington level review and approval. And then at the end of the study, we package it and we basically provide it to Congress so they can authorize us to go the next step, which is to do the plans and specification and the implementation of the result of the study. This is from us gathering that information. This is just kind of a look of the information that we have. And if we want to just focus on Plainfield, this is the average annual damages basically, and it shows as 873,000 per year. Is that? So it seems like there is a significant damage, you know, here in Plainfield. So next. So this is basically taking that damage information and plotting it on a map. And we highlighted actually the corporate limits for Plainfield. And this is the different colors of the dots. It shows you the different elevation of the event. So, and basically from that information, if we go to the next, we basically start looking at maybe the measures that I was talking about, some structural measures, and I am not sure if you're if you're seeing it, like. Oh. I just wanted to basically point out that, like you see the red line here, that we're looking at levees basically to be implemented, and those areas we can actually find open areas for reservoirs and things like that, because if you build levees, you might have to compensate by finding an area that actually stores the overages. So So just I wanted to point out that we are at the stage. I just wanted to show that we're at the stage where those are things that we're looking at. We're also trying to get information. Actually, we had a meeting, and Randy attended that meeting with a lot of the municipalities and trying to go over all these sites and making sure that they're aware that what sites are we looking at, and if they actually have any more input to those sites. So, so that's where we're at this point. If we go next one. It's a 3-year study. So we started in July. We basically met our January 2016. We have what we call alternative milestone, which is basically the report that shows what we are going to be looking into the future. The next thing is by January next year, we should have a tentatively selected plan, which is basically shows that we took all those plans that were shown on that map and whittled down to things that we really think that maybe we can go to Congress and authorize us for actually to go in and get that approved. So basically the chief's report at the end, that's when this feasibility report will be approved projected to be approved July 2018. Next. So at this point, if you guys have any questions, want to add anything, Sue, before we go into questions? No. Okay.
If you don't mind, I know you've met with a couple of other communities so far.
Yes.
Who have you met with, and what have been the experiences that you've had in those presentations?
Actually, we have met with all the municipalities that are being touched by the DuPage River, the DuPage River watershed in Will County. So we basically, from Shanahan to Naperville to Plainfield, all the municipalities. Our main, which is, as I said, our local sponsor or the main entity is the Will County Executive Office. That's the one that we're dealing with. But their jurisdiction is on an unincorporated area. So they really are, they have a very big emphasis on us meeting with the municipalities because they rely on the municipalities to do basically their work. So they would like them to get with us and talk to us and communicate with us.
I asked because I know that there in the report there are a couple of areas that you've identified as being eligible or available or possible uses for storage, and those have been eliminated. And I was kind of curious to have you explain to the board the process by which you went through to identify those and then have those removed from your identified list.
Are we talking about specific places or just the process for us to?
More the process.
Okay, as I said, basically we just looked at the maps and looked where are open areas, and we seen there's a lot of open areas. So we basically looked at those open areas. The next step is to also talk to all the people that really know about those areas to make sure that we are not going into places where they had history or they had things like that. So, if you want to.
We're also, when we do our screening, we eliminate potential areas if it's a natural area that perhaps has a really high quality native assemblage. We don't want to go in there and disrupt it with a facility. So our screening process is going to consider things like current uses, natural usage, and other restrictions that might make it difficult to implement a storage site. So, but if you have particular areas that you'd like us to address, if you can let us know, we can give you a response as to why that screening process happened.
Okay.
We don't have a report. I think we're starting to take this really big list and whittle it down to something that's more manageable to do more detailed analysis on.
I think I just wanted to make sure that you were the ones doing that analysis and it wasn't the locals that were driving that decision for you at this point.
We're working collaboratively.
Yes.
So it's not a core decision and it's not a sponsor decision, and it's something that we're gonna have to document in our analysis to indicate why we started with this suite and why things fell off the table. So we'll be very careful to make sure that's documented, but it's a collaborative process.
A couple of questions. I applaud the process. I think it's great that we're looking at it, and definitely some good things can come out of it. If we're lucky, they will, for sure. Use the term backwater. What occasion? Overbank, I understand. We see a lot of that, but what's the backwater? When does that occur, and what causes that?
Basically, we will be studying basically events, storm events that we actually either have a model or have information to know what the inundation is per an event. And we also try to get that also verified by all these gauges that we have. Maybe, Sue, you want to?
You might see a backwater situation on higher flood stage, and because of that, and the tributary doesn't, the tributary can sometimes, flood water can back up into a tributary.
Okay.
That's kind of one of the uses for a backwater. Another use of a backwater could just be kind of a quiescent zone that doesn't really flow. It just connected to the river, like perhaps a marsh response would be considered a backwater. So it really depends on the context of the question, but I think the way we're looking at it, it's not just that riverine flooding, it would be that up the tributary flooding that we would also consider the impacts of perhaps leakage.
I would assume some backwater can come from obstacles, if you will. We had a flood here in '97, as I understand it, that we had ice blocked up on the rivers and it backed up. That's one. We have deep beavers who are very active in certain parts, and they can back water up too. So
You'll have bridges that basically were designed in a way that would back water. And
Yeah, it's
that's
just-
something as part of the study too.
but if your data indicates that you got a bottleneck of some sort, you would attempt to de-bottleneck it as part of your program, if you will. The other question I have probably is outside the scope of what you're doing. The state of Illinois has some laws that relate to flooding that's permitted. When you put a new project in, you have to kind of meet some criteria. Are you addressing those laws at all, or? Well, in the floodway, yeah, you're allowed to put something that has an impact of less than 1/10 of a foot, as I understand it.
Right, and actually for northeastern Illinois, the regulations says that you have no a lot more stringent in northeastern Illinois because of them populated. So that's why Ahmad was talking about areas where we might put in a levee where you are going to restrict the river from flowing where it normally would. The water levels will go up either upstream or could go up as well downstream. So we always have to look for that compensatory storage to offset the impacts of an obstruction. So that goes hand in hand.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Everything that we will be doing in this study will be actually provided to IDNR and IDEM and for their review and therefore concurrence. So we would basically know anything that we have to do to make sure that we're not making anything. We are basically in accordance with their also laws and regulations.
Yeah, as you know, there's a request from residents, maybe upwards of 10 years ago to do something like this, and we're glad that you're doing it. But there's an awful lot of emotion around this, so whatever you do, you're going to have to find a way to sell it to the residents. This is in everybody's best interest, and the more completely you can provide that data, the better off we're all going to be, I think. It's a tricky challenge because it's a very, very emotional issue when people find water in their basements or in their houses. So
We'll have a our process out to the public in all the states and federally. So we are going to work tell the message.
Good, thank you.
I guess I just wanted to comment and say, I think this is great. 30 years, I think, is what staff said since the last time this study was updated. Really, so that's, knowing the amount of growth that's gone on in Will County, that's a good thing, I believe, for us. So you mentioned at one point, based upon when the report's done, it's presented to Congress. Assuming that they agree with the report and stuff, do they actually fund? Is that where you get the funding? Is it a shared funding process, or how does that work?
You would need two things. You would need authorization for construction, and you need appropriation. Authorization is important because we can't do anything without authorization, but then if we don't have appropriation, then we don't have funding. So we need two things from Congress for them to authorize construction, and then the next thing is appropriate funds for it.
But typically with appropriations, have you seen that Congress usually supports that 100%, or is it local funding with it, or how does that usually work?
We have a budget process. Recommend projects. That's Congress. That's our government. Typically, types of projects are a lot of.
But is there usually a shared piece of that, or is Congress usually?
There is there's a cost share. Federal share is 65%. O&M operation.
And one other question, I don't know if you can answer this, but I guess living in a homeowner association, we have the retention ponds that fall into the common areas. I'm assuming that some of that water gets discharged downstream, downriver, maybe I'm wrong, but is there a resource that you're aware of that those communities could work with to try to get some help on maybe just directions as far as sediment removal and that kind of stuff? Do you know?
I don't.
Do some of those flow downstream into the watershed you're describing?
It would depend.
But on your initial thing, potentially some of those could be part of your study if they eventually feed into the watershed. Is that?
It really depends. Much bigger, substantial capacity. So I'd say those together to make I think there are probably best management practices for water storage like that out there. Has some practices.
Thank you.
Very good information here. I don't have any follow-up questions tonight. I do also want to recognize that as I sift through everybody out there in the audience, we do have the Plainfield and the Wheatland Township Highway Commissioners here, I'm assuming, to obtain information as far as our presentation. I want to thank them for coming tonight. And those are my comments. Thank you as well for everything.
Is there anything else for tonight, Randy?
Yes, as Sue mentioned, they made this presentation to the county about 3 weeks ago. And when I saw the suggested remediation efforts being the retention areas and levees and what have you, and I knew that the Little Page was presenting today, it'd be a good way to combine the both of them to kind of look forward in the next few years when the study's completed and these projects, the
Question on a lot of the rivers, most of the rivers unincorporated.
Correct. And
That's not necessarily part of our budget. That'd be part of the Will County budget, would it not?
well, there was some discussion because I'm on the Will County Stormwater Management Committee as well, and so there was some discussion as how this benefits. You know, there are specific entities that will benefit from this, Plainfield being one of them, and another community, you know, several miles away from the river. You know, how do you pay for that, or what's the equitable way to pay for that? And I think that's yet to be determined. But the ones like the illustrated and levy through, you know, basically out here and heading south about 4,000 feet, that would be in the village. And, correct.
One upstream of around 135th Street, coming down, that would be unincorporated township. Yeah.
And last fall, you know, we had a half a day with the court, and we drove around, looked at all the sites that flooded, you know, in town, and a lot of them are unincorporated, and it's one of the reasons we have the highway commissioners here is to hear this information firsthand, and so they can start thinking about it in future years as well.
A ballpark level of funding that you'd want to project, save for, or?
And they come up with the projects and, you know, very high level estimates. It's hard to say at this point, but, you know, some of the projects could be substantial. So you get the cost benefit, is it worth that? But the average annual damages is over $800,000 a year. So you got to factor that in as well.
We should have some of that information sometime in January of 2017.
Yeah, we'll have an order of magnitude at that point.
Yes. It's still feasibility level information, but definitely you would have something quantifies things.
Yeah, I think in order to be proactive, we need some guidance.
Yes, we understand, yes.
So we'll look forward to having you come back next year.
And just to make another little tie-in too, with Jennifer's presentation about water quality, if we're able to satisfy both flood control and water quality in a reservoir type projects, I mean, that would be great for the area as well.
Thank you very much.
Reminders.
March 15th be our next planning commission meeting. The 21st is our next village board meeting, and the 28th will be our next committee of the whole.
Seeking a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. That motion carries.